Welcome, everyone, to a new series where I will be listening to your terrible disc golf takes and telling you why you are wrong. There's certainly no shortage of hot takes being thrown around on social media in the disc golf community. And so I'm here to fill the void of someone to tell you why your takes are truly, truly awful. I went on social media and asked you guys for some hot takes. We have a bunch here to go through, so why don't we just get going? The buzz sucks. Yeah, I don't know if this is just trying to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. Maybe you just don't like the buzz, but I think the buzz is honestly a pretty good disc. It's not like my go-to mid-range. I think it's like everyone's mid-range they find when they start playing disc golf, but I think you can't deny its place in disc golf and how it is kind of push the mid-range game forward. I don't really know if that like 5-5 minus 1-1. I don't know if there was really a mid-range before the buzz that started that slot. And now it seems like every single company is trying to do what the buzz is doing. You could maybe argue the hex is better than the buzz, like a better version of the buzz. And I would maybe agree with that. But I still think the buzz is a pretty dang good disc. And people seem to really like the buzz saws. So kind of a hot take. I would disagree though. Emperors are better than destroyers. I've never thrown an emperor before, but you're probably wrong because the destroyer is amazing. If there's even remotely a hyzer backhand line, I'm taking it every time. Yeah, I don't think this is a hot take at all. I think pretty much everyone would agree with you. Maybe like 1% of people wouldn't want to, but like, yeah, the hyzer backhand is like the easiest shot ever. Maybe forehand only players. Not a hot take. Most stock Innova plastic post 2022 feels like blizzardy trash. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by like blizzardy trash. I guess you mean like the rim of the disc kind of being a little bit off. I kind of see what you're coming from. I'm trying to think of like examples for this. I mean, you're definitely right in it being mostly the stock runs, like definitely the newer stuff. Like I have this Halo Destroyer with me that I guess you could technically say is a stock run, but it's not like the typical star run that you would get. This is pretty nice. It feels really good. But I've definitely gotten some stock runs in recent memory that were kind of not feeling as good as they did in recent years. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like Innova's quality has kind of fallen off in terms of their like basic stock runs, but their Tour Series stuff is really, really good. I don't know if they're like doing that on purpose or like changing their formula. All disc golfers are athletes, but not all athletes are disc golfers. I don't even know what you're trying to say, honestly. I don't think you know what a hot take is. I think you misunderstood the question. Paul McBeth is the GOAT based on his height, listed at 5'8", winning against players who are 6'4". I'm jumping out here saying this because if he was 6'4", he'd be throwing even further with less effort and better leverages. I don't really disagree. It's definitely really cool to see McBeth being as dominant as he was and still is at his height. However, I think this kind of just speaks more to like, I don't think height matters that much in disc golf. Clearly, people at his height can throw pretty far, and people who are like super freakishly tall and have a super long wingspan, I don't think get like that crazy of an advantage. Plus, there's plenty of courses that distance doesn't matter as much that are still on tour. And you've seen guys like Emerson Keith went on tour as recently as like 1 or 2 years ago. So I don't know. I feel like the height in disc golf thing is a bit overplayed. Like, I just think it doesn't matter as much as people say it is. It might be more of like a bias where like maybe because you're tall and you have like a really easy time getting into the sport, you're more likely to go forward and become a pro. Where if you're like smaller and it takes a bit more effort to throw further and it's not like you have these crazy levers to throw super easily, you might not pursue it as much. Like, I think that's definitely maybe a bit of a factor instead of just saying, oh, well, if you're tall, it's just you're guaranteed to be on tour. If McBeth was 6'4", would it be easier? I don't even know how to. Yeah, I guess so, maybe. But I feel like his dominance is less about his height and his ability to throw far and more about his mental game, his putting, his up shots. Like, I just don't think height has anything near as much to do with it as you might think. 3 to 5 discs in one's bag do 95% of the work. The rest are mainly for fun or that 1 in 3 round shot. I mean, I definitely have some discs in my bag that I'm not pulling out very often. 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Roadrunner, only really throwing rollers on it. A lot of courses that don't have rollers. And then my deflector, which is just disgustingly overstable. I think I've thrown it in tournament. Like, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've thrown it in tournament. But like, depending on the course, I don't know. I feel like I throw a lot of my discs a lot of times, especially if I'm playing a tournament with multiple courses. It's just, I think my bag is pretty well-rounded and that I'm throwing a lot of different discs. Also, if the wind changes, like I might throw one destroyer versus another. How many times have you seen a pro walk up to the T-pad with like 2 or 3 discs? I think you may be speaking a little bit more on behalf of amateurs who are just leaning on one disc super, super hard and then just like not throwing other stuff. But I feel like for me, each disc has a pretty good used spot in my bag where I'm throwing it pretty often. I don't know. This is probably true for some people, but like not true for others. I would say for the majority of people though, I think 3 to 5 is like a really low number. Professionals playing the same courses every year is hurting the sport. We need to branch out more. I'm going to say I agree and disagree. I agree in the sense that we definitely need to branch out more. Like we totally need to be bringing more courses on tour, getting rid of the ones that aren't as good. I think this is kind of a popular idea among most people. Like just seeing the same courses year after year after year is not super fun. And I feel like the changes they do make are just not big enough that they'll just make 1 or 2 changes. I would like to see a bit more of a rotation when it comes to courses. But I also think there's that aspect of like, it is fun to see the same courses played every year. There are some courses that are fan favorites. Vermont, Maple Hill, even a course like Waco, I think people look forward to seeing. Like I kind of enjoy it. So I personally really enjoy watching Jonesboro, even if some people don't, because it's like one of the first courses I watched a tournament at. And I think it's a fun, very nice looking course to watch. And the outskirts where there's like courses that aren't as popular or like well known on the tour. Yeah, I think you could totally see some more rotation, see stuff moving in and out of like the Q series or whatever they want to do with that. But maybe as the Q series gets more popular, as more tournaments start to show up and the sport grows more, you can kind of see some more rotation. But it's also, I know, pretty dang hard to get a course on the tour. So also some courses are just really hard to film at. And I think the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour both are trying to move away from that in these courses that are just bad for viewership. Being reliant on runs of discs is silly and a sign of a less dynamic athlete. Something that I really dislike when I see in the bags from pros is like,
yeah, this is my like 7-time Climo rock from like 15 years ago. I need it in the bag for this specific shot that flips up like this and just rides perfect.
And it's like, okay, first of all, just like as a human being, there's a 0% chance you're so consistent that incredibly specific run is exactly what you need. Second of all, we see pros moving to companies, changing their whole bag, putting in fresh discs in their bag. I mean, like Eagle in like the height of his career up to this point, he was giving away his entire bag to spectators and then starting a whole new one and still winning on tour. I don't think you need to have these like super specific runs. Some of the sort of old heads in the sport, some of the older pros seem to kind of be of this mindset. I think we're moving more towards a space where people are just kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to throw the new stuff. It's all pretty good. The one, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, I guess if companies are kind of bad at making a good run, like in particular, this Run of Destroyer that I'm still holding in my bag that is super expensive, I'm not going to keep buying them because I don't want to, but I'm looking for a replacement for it. And I definitely could find one, but I know I like it. I know I have them, so I'm sticking to it. Ricky and Paul, both on Discraft, is bad for our sport. I don't see how it could be bad for the sport because I don't think Paul is like at the same pedigree that he was at the height of his career when he was winning back-to-back world championships. I feel like you got guys like Gannon, AB. I'm not really thinking of a ton off the top of my head, but like there's a ton of Isaac Robinson, Ezra Robinson. All of these guys are dominating in the top of the sport right now. I just don't think that like Ricky Paul dynamic is the same as it was back in like, I don't know, 2014 to like 2018. So I think having them both on the same team, especially at this point, is like super cool and kind of like a nice way to like create some more branding, maybe some content with the two of them. If they were both the top players and no one else compared to them, I would agree. But like right now, there's so much parity on the top of the Pro Tour. I don't think it really matters unless Discraft grabbed like literally every single player in the top like 20. It may be a cold take now, but the discourse around baskets and putting needs to stop. All of it is complete nonsense. The baskets do not need to be changed, and the circle does not need to be changed. This is how the sport has worked for 40 plus years. Just because pros can make 95% of C1 putts doesn't mean there's something terribly wrong with the game. And I don't know where this discourse came from that pros are making 95+% of C1 putts. Like I think the highest Circle 1X percentage was like 92% or like 91%. No one's making 95+. 95+ would be the best putter on tour like ever. There should be as little separation between the game that professionals play and the game that the recreational players play as possible, or at the very least, the foundations of the game should be the same and the rec players can do stuff like 2 off the top or whatever. I don't even know. I don't know what you're trying to say with that. I do agree that the game should be the same for both. I don't think people are advocating for like the Pro Tour to have different baskets or putting regulations. I do agree that it should be the same on both. So if anyone's advocating for like only high level to be changed, I definitely disagree with that. The two off the top thing, I don't know what you're saying. Disc golf baskets are imperfect. They're not meant to catch everything, and having this expectation of them is ridiculous. I think you're being a little bit purist when it comes to this, but I kind of agree. Like Brody talking on Tour Life about how like there should be a sensor in the basket, so if you like hit a certain spot, it goes in. It's like the dumbest idea I've ever heard. We should never do that. I think that would make the sport look so incredibly janky and stupid. Like it's fine the way it is. We don't need sensors in baskets. Also, that would make the sport like so weirdly inaccessible for certain courses. Like, no, it's a terrible idea. I'm not defending the veteran, like if that's the basket you're going to choose. That thing should be ripped out of every course it's on, but there's no conversation to be had around this stuff. It's stupid and pointless. Yeah, honestly, this is like probably the opinion I'm going to agree with the most. I do not think we need to change baskets, basket sizes. I don't know if like people are just trying to stir up like controversy or just like create stuff to talk about on social media, especially in the off season. But like, why are we talking about changing the basket size, changing the circle? Like there are so many things we can do about disc golf to make it more fun. I don't think like very specifically how putting works within like 10 meters to 20 meters or like the basket size is going to change much. What's going to end up happening is we're going to change it. Every course in the world is going to have to change their shit, change it all up. The whole Pro Tour is going to have to change. We're going to dump money into it. And then guess what? Nothing's going to change. Maybe people who watch disc golf for a long time are going to care about it less now. I don't think it's going to bring in any new people. At the very best, it does almost nothing. And at the very worst, it makes the game worse. It makes it less accessible to courses that have been in for a very long time. We can work on so many better things like our advertising, like companies helping their players out, the courses locally, building more courses locally, how we're filming the Pro Tour, how good our commentary is. Like there is just so many things that we can do to make the sport grow, make it better, make it more interesting. I don't think changing like little edge cases with putting and like making the basket like 1 inch smaller, the change a little bit different. I don't think any of that matters at all. It's like a total nonsense argument that does basically nothing and just wastes time. Venture capitalists are bad for disc golf. I mean, yeah, so we had the House of Discs get taken over by venture capitalists. I honestly don't know a whole lot about the ins and outs of venture capital, but I do tend to agree that like disc golf is very reliant on grassroots growth, especially at the size that it is. And I feel like venture capitalists are really not going to care a whole lot about the grassroots part of disc golf, the sort of local stuff. Maybe they do a little bit, but I think what we're seeing is just increases in prices, just sort of basic corporate strategies for making money. And then now we've seen that Dynamic Discs is losing a ton of money. They just lost mid-contract the number 2 player in the world. I think it's pretty clear that whatever they're doing isn't working, and the discs that they're putting out are like way too expensive. They just put themselves in the market as like, I don't know, maybe one of the worst companies now. Like they've almost taken over Prodigy as like almost a laughing stock of like disc golf companies. They just lost the best player. They're losing all these contracts. Their discs are super expensive. They're like losing tons of money. And it's no surprise that this happened right after venture capitalists took over and started making all the decisions. And now they're stuck having to just keep moving forward with the strategy until they either run the company into the ground or realize that they got to move on to something else. Wow, thank you everyone for those truly atrocious takes. I had so much fun reading them. I'll be back for more. I'm going to make this little series going forward, especially in the off season, because it's terribly cold outside and I hate it and I want to play disc golf and I can't. So I'm just going to spend my time ranting in my room about nonsense because that's what I can do right now. Okay, bye, peace.